The massive docking bay of the Galactic Council's space station gleamed with polished surfaces and perfectly aligned ships. Vessels from 100 different worlds stood in neat rows, each one more beautiful than the last. Their hulls sparkled under the bright lights, showing off the latest in space technology. Then came the Phoenix. Captain Tom Reed's ship limped into the docking bay like an old stray dog walking into a fancy pet show. The Phoenix was a sight that made traffic controllers pause and check their screens twice. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals. Some sections shone brightly, others were dark and weathered, and a few parts looked like they'd been pulled straight from a scrapyard. "What in the name of the three suns is that?" asked High Commander Bright of the Stellar Federation. He stood at the observation deck, his blue-tinted skin wrinkling in disgust. Around him, other alien representatives whispered and pointed at the approaching vessel. The Phoenix's landing wasn't exactly graceful. The ship settled onto its dock with a loud hiss and a few creaks that echoed through the bay. Steam escaped from vents that didn't quite match, and cooling systems whirred to life at slightly different pitches. As the main airlock cycled, First Officer Jack Miller checked the external cameras and grinned. "Looks like we're causing quite a stir, Captain." Tom Reed nodded, straightening his worn but clean uniform. "Let them stare. Phoenix has never let us down." Engineer Anna Torres looked up from her console, her hands still moving over the controls as she balanced their power systems. "They're probably trying to count how many different ships we've used for parts. Current total is 17, by the way." The airlock opened with a mix of hisses, some high-pitched, some low, because even the seals came from different sources. Captain Reed led his small crew out onto the pristine dock. Their boots echoed on the polished floor as a group of station officials approached, their faces showing a mix of horror and curiosity. "Captain Reed," said the lead official, a tall alien with silvery skin who introduced himself as Station Master Gray. "Your vessel isn't listed in any of our design databases." "That's because there's only one Phoenix," Reed replied with a slight smile. "She's custom-built." "Custom-built," came a sharp voice. High Commander Bright pushed his way forward, his ceremonial cape swishing behind him. "That's not a custom-built ship. That's junkyard trash. Look at it. You've got plating from an old Stellar Federation cruiser, engine housing that's clearly salvaged from a mining vessel. And is that a civilian cargo ship's loading door?" Reed's smile didn't waver. "Good eye, Commander. That door's from the Carson-class freighters. Best vacuum seal ever designed, even if they did go out of production 20 years ago." "This is an insult." Bright's skin turned from blue to purple with anger. "The annual ship showcase is meant to display the finest vessels in the galaxy, not some cobbled-together wreck that looks like it would fall apart in a light breeze." Other alien representatives gathered around, their murmurs of agreement growing louder. A few took pictures, probably to share as jokes with their home worlds. Jack Miller stepped forward, always the diplomat. "With respect, Commander, the showcase rules only specify that ships must be space-worthy and pass safety inspections. The Phoenix passes both criteria with room to spare. We've logged over 300 successful missions," Anna added proudly, "including zones that most proper ships won't go near." "Logged missions. Ha!" Bright turned to address the growing crowd. "Look at this, everyone. The humans think they can impress us with their garbage collection. They take our discarded parts and dare to call it a spaceship." The laughter that followed was loud and harsh. Reed exchanged looks with his crew, but they held their ground. They'd heard it all before. Every port, every station, every meeting with the proper spacers, always the same reactions. But the Phoenix had proven herself time and time again, and that's all that mattered to them. What none of them knew was that very soon, those laughs would turn to gasps of amazement, and the Phoenix would show exactly why humans had earned their place among the stars. The emergency alarms blared through the space station just 3 hours after the Phoenix's arrival. Red lights flashed across the once peaceful docking bay, turning the polished floors into rivers of crimson. Station Master Gray's voice crackled over the intercom. all his previous ceremony replaced by urgent necessity. All representatives to the emergency hall. Repeat, all representatives to the emergency hall. This is not a drill. Captain Reed and his crew joined the stream of aliens rushing toward the station's central chamber. The emergency hall was a massive room with curved walls covered in display screens. As they entered, Reed noticed the usual sneers from other species had been replaced by worried looks. Station Master Gray stood at the center platform, his silvery skin pale with concern. Behind him, a massive screen showed a nearby star system, with angry red and orange colors swirling across its surface. "We have a situation," Gray announced, his voice grave. "The mining colony on Outpost 7 has sent a distress signal. A massive solar storm, far larger than anything predicted by our models, is approaching their position." The room erupted in concerned murmurs. Outpost 7 was one of the largest mining operations in the sector, with over 300 workers from various species. High Commander Bright stepped forward, his blue skin now ashen. "How long until the storm hits them?" 4 hours, Gray replied. "The colony's shields won't hold against something this powerful. They need immediate evacuation." "My ship can be ready in 20 minutes, Bright announced proudly. Several other representatives made similar offers, their sleek vessels supposedly the answer to this crisis. But Anna Torres, who had been studying the storm data on her tablet, suddenly spoke up. "Those ships won't make it." All eyes turned to the human engineer. High Commander Bright's face twisted in contempt. "And what would a junkyard mechanic know about our ships?" Anna stepped forward, her fingers flying over her tablet. The main screen split to show technical readouts. "Look at these radiation levels. The storm is producing waves that will tear through standard shield configurations. Your ship's symmetrical design means the radiation will hit all shield segments with equal force. They'll fail in minutes. And I suppose your pile of scraps could do better." Someone shouted from the crowd. Captain Reed smiled slightly. "Actually, yes." He nodded to Anna, who brought up an image of the Phoenix. "Our pile of scraps has an irregular hull composition. Different materials, different shapes, different shield frequencies all working together. The radiation won't have a single point of attack." Jack Miller stepped forward to explain further. "It's like trying to break a single stick versus trying to break a bundle of different materials all tied together. The Phoenix's irregular design is its strength." Station Master Gray looked skeptical but desperate. "Can you prove this?" Anna pulled up more data. The Phoenix's hull includes sections of radiation-hardened plating from an old Earth nuclear vessel, cooling systems from 3 different species designs, and shield generators that we've modified to work in harmony rather than uniformity. We've survived radiation storms before. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. On the main screen, the angry storm continued to grow, time ticking away for the colonists. High Commander Bright's face had turned a deep purple again, but this time from frustration rather than anger. "This is absurd. We cannot pin the hopes of 300 lives on a ship that works." Reed finished for him. "Sometimes the best solution isn't the prettiest one, Commander." Station Master Gray looked from the storm data to the Phoenix's specifications, then to the other ships in the dock. His expression shifted from doubt to determination. "Captain Reed, how quickly can the Phoenix be ready for launch?" Reed exchanged looks with his crew, seeing the same resolve in their eyes that he felt. "We're ready now, sir. Just give the word." Gray nodded slowly. "Then Outpost 7's fate rests in your hands. May the stars guide you." As they hurried back to their ship, Reed could feel the stares of the other representatives following them. But this time, there was no laughter, only hope, tinged with the first hints of respect. The Phoenix's engine room hummed with activity as Anna Torres moved from panel to panel, her hands dancing across controls that no standard engineer would ever put together. Behind her, a small group of alien observers watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. "You can't mix power systems like that." protested a green-skinned technical advisor from the Stellar Federation. "The frequencies will clash." Anna didn't even look up from her work. "They would if we hadn't modified the power converters. Watch." She flipped a series of switches, and the observers gasped as energy flowed smoothly through circuits that should have exploded from incompatibility. In the ship's command center, Captain Reed was briefing Station Master Gray and several other officials. The main screen showed a detailed map of their planned route to Outpost 7. "We'll approach from this angle," Reed explained, tracing a path through the holographic display. "The Phoenix's forward section includes plating from an old Earth submarine." "Sounds crazy, I know," he added, seeing their expressions. "But that metal was designed to handle extreme pressure changes, perfect for navigating solar storm conditions." "And this section?" Gray asked, pointing to a particularly odd-looking part of the hull. "Cooling systems from 3 different desert worlds," Jack Miller answered, joining them with a stack of data pads, each designed to handle different types of heat. "Together, they give us triple redundancy." High Commander Bright, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "This is madness. You've turned ship design into some kind of circus act." "No," Reed corrected him calmly. "We've turned it into an art form. Every piece on the Phoenix is here because it's the best at what it does. We don't care where it came from or how it looks. We care that it works." On the lower deck, crew members were securing emergency supplies. Through the loading bay windows, they could see other ships' crews watching them. The mockery from earlier had been replaced by intense interest as the Phoenix's team moved with practiced efficiency. Anna's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, you need to see this. Bringing it up on your screen now." The display changed to show new data from the solar storm. The radiation levels were even higher than initially reported. A murmur of concern spread through the observers. "Can your ship still handle these conditions?" Gray asked, his silver skin reflecting the red warning lights. Reed studied the numbers, then nodded to Anna. She pulled up a diagram of the Phoenix's shield configuration. "See these patterns? The varying shield frequencies actually work better under extreme conditions. The radiation gets scattered instead of hitting us head-on. Like 1,000 small punches instead of one big hit," Jack added, seeing the confusion on their faces. "Easier to absorb." As the final preparations continued, more alien engineers and scientists crowded around the Phoenix's access points, recording everything they saw. The ship that had been a joke just hours ago was now the center of intense study. 10 minutes to launch," Anna announced. "All systems are green. Well, mostly green. Some are blue, purple, and that one sort of orange, but they're all working perfectly." Reed turned to the station officials. "We need to leave now if we're going to reach the colony in time." Station Master Gray nodded solemnly. "The lives of 300 colonists are in your hands, Captain. Do you truly believe this unique approach of yours will succeed?" Reed looked around at his crew, at the ship that had carried them through countless missions, at the patches and modifications that each told a story of human ingenuity and determination. "Sir," he replied with quiet confidence, "the Phoenix has never failed us, and she's not about to start now." The observers began filing out of the ship, some still shaking their heads in disbelief, others looking thoughtful. As the airlock sealed, the Phoenix's mismatched systems came fully to life, each part working in its own way toward a common goal. The rescue mission was about to begin, and the true test of human engineering was about to unfold. The Phoenix pulled away from the space station with a series of uneven thrums from its mixed collection of engines. Through the station's observation windows, dozens of alien representatives watched the strange ship depart, their earlier mockery replaced by tense silence. Inside the Phoenix's control room, Captain Reed watched as the first waves of the solar storm appeared on their long-range sensors. The view screen showed massive swirls of deadly radiation painting space in angry shades of red and orange. "First radiation wave approaching," Jack announced from his station. "Impact in 3 minutes." Anna's fingers flew across her engineering console, adjusting power levels. Activating our outer shield layer. It's the one we built from those old mining deflectors everyone thought were obsolete. The Phoenix shuddered as the first wave hit. The ship's hull creaked and groaned, its mismatched parts each responding differently to the stress. To anyone else, it would have sounded like the ship was falling apart. To its crew, it was the sound of survival. Shield holding at 92%, Jack reported. That's better than the simulations predicted. Reed nodded, then opened a channel to the space station. Phoenix to control. First wave impact successful. Proceeding to Phase 2. Station Master Gray's voice came back, thick with surprise. Confirmed, Phoenix. Your shield strength. Our sensors must be wrong. They're showing patterns that should be impossible. Your sensors are working fine, Anna replied, grinning. The impossible is kind of our specialty. The Phoenix pushed deeper into the storm. Outside, radiation levels continued to climb. The ship's external cameras showed space itself seeming to boil with energy. The temperature began to rise, but the combined cooling systems, each designed for different extremes, worked together to keep the ship's interior stable. Second wave incoming, Jack called out. This one's stronger. The ship groaned louder this time. Warning lights flickered across nearly every console, but none stayed red. The Phoenix's systems, like a band playing different instruments, somehow created harmony from chaos. Hull temperature rising, Anna reported, activating that cooling system we salvaged from the desert mining platform. You know, the one Commander Bright called primitive garbage yesterday. The temperature gauge immediately began to drop. On the station's command channel, they could hear surprised murmurs as the aliens monitored their progress. Amazing, one voice said. They're using the radiation itself to power their secondary shields. That's impossible, came another voice. The power requirements alone. Not impossible, Anna cut in. Just needed thinking differently. Those power converters everyone throws away because they're too unstable. Turns out they work great if you use them in parallel instead of series. The Phoenix continued its advance, each challenge met by some piece of junk that proved its worth. The submarine plating absorbed pressure changes that would have cracked standard hulls. The outdated cooling systems worked together to handle heat no single system could manage. Even the mismatched hull plates helped, their different compositions breaking up radiation patterns in unpredictable ways. Approaching the halfway point, Jack announced, storm intensity still increasing, but everything's holding steady. Reed couldn't help but smile as he watched his ship perform. Every piece they'd added, every modification they'd made, every crazy idea they tried, all of it was proving its worth now. The Phoenix wasn't just surviving the storm, it was thriving in it. Captain, Anna called out suddenly, her voice tense. Long-range sensors are picking up something ahead. Something big. Reed leaned forward in his chair, studying the readings. Among the swirls of radiation, something darker was taking shape. Something that wasn't part of any prediction or simulation. What is it? Jack asked. Trouble, Reed answered grimly. Real trouble, and we're heading straight for it. The Phoenix pushed onward, its patchwork systems holding together, about to face a challenge that would test not just its unusual design, but the very principles that had built it. The dark anomaly loomed ahead of the Phoenix, a massive void in the middle of the solar storm. The ship's sensors struggled to make sense of what they were seeing. It's a gravity well, Anna announced, her eyes widening at the readings. The storm's energy created some kind of temporary black hole. The radiation is being pulled into it. Can we go around it? Reed asked, already knowing the answer. Jack shook his head. No time. The mining colony will be hit by the storm in less than an hour. We have to go through it. The news reached the space station, and High Commander Bright's voice crackled over the comm. Turn back immediately. No ship can withstand those gravitational forces. Your hull will be crushed like an egg. Reed looked at his crew. They had faced impossible situations before, but this was different. The gravity well could tear their beloved ship apart in seconds. "Actually," Anna said slowly, studying her console, "we might have a chance. Captain, remember that cargo ship Graveyard we salvaged from last year?" Reed nodded. "The one where we got those weird stretchy support beams that everyone said were too unstable to use." "Exactly." Anna's fingers flew across her controls. Those beams were designed to flex under stress instead of staying rigid. Most ships don't use them because they make the hull shape unpredictable. But right now, unpredictable is exactly what we need. Jack finished, catching on. A rigid hull would snap, but if we can flex with the gravitational forces. The Phoenix shuddered as it drew closer to the anomaly. The gravity well's pull grew stronger, and the ship's hull began to creak and groan even louder than before. "All power to those support beams," Reed ordered. "Route everything through the emergency systems." "Sir," came Gray's worried voice from the station, "your ship's hull integrity is fluctuating wildly. It's changing shape." "That's the plan," Anna replied, her voice steady despite the sweat on her forehead. "The Phoenix isn't fighting the gravity. She's dancing with it." The ship entered the edge of the gravity well. Warning alarms blared as the hull began to stretch and compress. But unlike a standard ship's rigid structure, the Phoenix's mismatched hull plates and flexible support beams moved with the forces instead of against them. "Hull stress at 85% and holding," Jack reported. "We're bending, but not breaking." Through the view screen, they watched as space itself seemed to twist around them. The Phoenix's shape warped in ways that would have torn any normal ship apart. But each piece of salvage, each worthless component, played its part in keeping them alive. "Look at these readings." An alien scientist's voice came over the comm. "The gravitational forces should be crushing them, but their hull configuration is. It's impossible. They're using the gravity itself to pull them through." The Phoenix's engines screamed as they fought against the immense forces. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, and the air filled with the smell of hot metal. But still, the ship held together. 20 seconds to clear the well," Jack announced through gritted teeth. "Hull temperature critical," Anna shouted. "We're routing power through those old coolant pipes we got from that abandoned station." Reed gripped his chair as the ship gave one final, massive shudder. Then suddenly, they were through. The gravity well fell behind them, and the Phoenix's hull slowly began to return to its normal shape. "Damage report?" Reed asked, finally allowing himself to breathe. "Everything's stressed. Some systems are overloaded, and we'll need to replace about a third of our power relays," Anna reported with a grin. "But we're alive. The Junkyard trash just did what no other ship in the galaxy could do." "Phoenix," Station Master Gray's voice was filled with awe. "Your approach to the mining colony is clear, and I believe we owe you an apology." But there was no time for apologies. The colony still needed them, and the Phoenix had one more impossible task ahead. As they approached their destination, the crew knew that their greatest challenge still lay ahead: saving 300 lives from the approaching storm. The mining colony came into view, a cluster of habitat domes and industrial structures clinging to the surface of a barren asteroid. The massive solar storm loomed behind it, its deadly radiation already starting to tear at the colony's failing shields. "Colony contact established," Jack announced. "They've got 312 people down there. Multiple species, different atmosphere requirements." "That's going to be a problem," came High Commander Bright's voice over the comm. "Your docking systems can't possibly be compatible with all their emergency suits." Anna smiled as she brought up a diagram on the main screen. "Actually, we have something better. Remember all those airlock parts we collected? The ones you called an incompatible mess?" The Phoenix's hull opened like a flower, revealing a dozen different docking ports. Each one was designed for a different species' emergency systems. What had once been mocked as excessive hoarding now revealed itself as careful planning. Beginning docking procedures, Reed announced. Anna, start the emergency power reroute. Jack, coordinate with the colony for evacuation groups. The Phoenix shuddered as it locked onto the colony's main hub. The storm's outer edges whipped around them, making metal screech and groan. But the ship held firm, its patchwork hull continuing to deflect the deadly radiation. Inside the colony, panic turned to confused hope as the emergency gates opened. The colonists, already in their environmental suits, stared at the strange ship that had come to their rescue. Some recognized parts from their own world's vessels, giving them an odd sense of comfort. First group, move in. Jack called through the colony's comm system. Follow the lit pathways. Don't worry about compatibility. We've got a port for everyone. The evacuation began. Through one port came tall, willowy aliens who needed low pressure. Through another came heavy gravity species who walked on multiple legs. Each found a docking system perfectly matched to their needs. Shield strength down to 40%. Anna reported, her hands dancing across controls. Rerouting power from non-essential systems. Define non-essential, Reed asked, watching the radiation levels climb. Everything that won't kill us in the next 20 minutes, she replied with grim humor, including that coffee maker you love so much. The Phoenix's systems groaned under the strain of maintaining multiple atmospheric conditions while fighting off the storm. But each salvaged part, each piece of junk, performed exactly as its human crew had believed it would. 200 evacuees secured, Jack called out, starting on the last group. The storm's intensity doubled, then tripled. Warning lights flashed across every console as the ship's engines fought to maintain position. The docking ports, never designed to operate simultaneously, strained under the pressure. We're losing the outer shield layer, Anna shouted over the noise of protesting metal. Reed's voice remained calm. How many more? 47 colonists, Jack replied. But the storm. We'll have to wait its turn, Reed finished. Anna, give me everything you can to those shields. Jack, tell the last group to run. The final minutes were a blur of activity. Colonists rushed through the doors as systems failed one by one. The Phoenix's hull temperature soared past safety limits, but the old cooling systems kept working, kept fighting. Last colonist aboard, Jack finally announced. All ports secured. Get us out of here, Reed ordered. The Phoenix pulled away from the colony just as the storm hit it full force. Through the rear cameras, they watched the empty habitat domes crumple under the radiation's assault. 312 souls safe, Reed said quietly. Good work, everyone. As they turned back toward the space station, their battered ship carried more than just rescued colonists. It carried proof that sometimes the best solutions aren't the prettiest ones, that junk in the right hands could become something extraordinary. But their mission wasn't over yet. They still had to make it back through the storm, their systems strained, their ship packed with survivors. And this time, they didn't have power to spare. The Phoenix limped through space, its hull scared and systems strained. Inside, 312 rescued colonists crowded every available space, while the ship's crew worked tirelessly to keep their wounded vessel moving. Status report, Reed called out, his voice hoarse from hours of giving orders. Not good, Anna replied from her engineering station. We're running on backup systems for our backup systems. Half our power relays are burned out, and the whole stress from carrying all these extra people. She shook her head. We're holding together with hope and habit at this point. Through the view screen, they could see the space station in the distance, a tiny bright dot of safety. But between them and their destination, the solar storm still raged. Incoming transmission, Jack announced. It's High Commander Bright. The commander's blue face appeared on their screen, his previous arrogance replaced by something that looked almost like respect. Phoenix, we've been monitoring your approach, your ship's condition. Our engineers say you shouldn't even be flying. Story of our lives, Commander, Reed replied with a tired smile. Any suggestions for getting through this storm one last time? There was a pause before Bright answered. Actually, yes. We've been studying your ship's performance data. Our entire engineering team has been analyzing how you survived that gravity well. We think we can help." Anna looked up in surprise as new technical data streamed across her console. The aliens had taken the Phoenix's impossible solutions and built on them, finding ways to squeeze even more efficiency from the ship's mismatched systems. "This is brilliant," she said, her fingers flying across the controls. "They found ways to route power we never even considered. Captain, with these modifications, we might just make it." The Phoenix entered the storm's edge. This time, instead of mockery, their comm system filled with encouraging voices from the station. Engineers from a dozen species called out suggestions, each having found something to admire in the human vessel's unorthodox design. "Radiation shields at 30% and holding," Jack reported. "The new power configuration is working." The ship pushed forward, its precious cargo of survivors protected by mechanisms that no shipyard would ever approve of. Every creak of the hull, every whine of the engines, told the story of human ingenuity refusing to give up. Station Master Gray's voice came over the comm. "Phoenix, you have priority docking clearance. Every medical team in the station is standing by." Finally, after what seemed like hours, the Phoenix broke through the last wave of the storm. The space station loomed before them, its docking bay doors wide open in welcome. The landing wasn't pretty. The Phoenix settled onto its berth with more groans and creaks than ever before. But as the airlock cycles completed and the rescued colonists began to disembark, cheers erupted throughout the station. High Commander Bright was waiting as Reeve and his crew emerged from their battered ship. The alien commander looked at the Phoenix, really looked at it, seeing past the mismatched hull plates and irregular design to the brilliant engineering beneath. "Captain Reed," Bright said formally, "I believe I owe you and your crew an apology. We called your ship junkyard trash, but today it did what our finest vessels could not." Reed smiled. "The Phoenix might not be pretty, Commander, but she's exactly what we needed her to be. Sometimes the best solutions come from seeing the value in things others throw away." In the days that followed, the Phoenix became a symbol of a new approach to space engineering. Alien engineers swarmed over the ship, studying every jury-rigged system and improvised solution. What they found changed ship design across the galaxy. The Galactic Council officially recognized human adaptive engineering as a legitimate field of study. Salvage yards, once considered places of shame, became centers of innovation, and in space docks across the galaxy, ships began to appear that valued function over form, possibility over perfection. The Phoenix had done more than save 300 lives. It had proven that innovation doesn't always come in a pretty package, and that sometimes the best way forward is to look at what others have left behind.